a central angle that has its vertex that has its vertex in the center of a circle. So here, if we were to label these points, we'll go with A, B, C. And so here, my central angle, its vertex is going to be in the center, and the two sides of that angle is going to be two radius or two radii. And so that angle that's created, that is what we call my central angle there. One quick fact, if I were to add up all of the central angles, right, the sum of the central angles, then it's going to equal to 360 degrees, right? So that's when we say how many degrees does it's a circle measure, it's 360, right? So here, my central angle, ABC, that's my central angle, right? And there's two, then there's what we call the arc measure, okay? So arc measure, first of all, arc, we'll use the same lettering. So A, B, C. The arc is not the angle per se, but the angle of the arc, right? So the arc is kind of like part of the outside part of the circumference. The arc measure, it's going to be the same as the central angle. So what we say is we have our central angle equals the arc measure, okay? And then that's always going to be true. And there's three types of arcs that we have. We have what we call a semicircle, and that means that the arc measures exactly 180 degrees, or half a circle. Then we have a minor arc, which is less than 180 degrees. And then we have a major arc, which is greater than 180 degrees. So let's look at the first problem. So here we have a problem. They're asking us to find all these measurements, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the diagram and label everything that I can. So notice how here this angle is 87. This arc measures 72, which means that this corresponding central angle, so the corresponding central angle is the angle that creates that arc measure, is also 72. Okay, and now we got to figure out what are all the other measurements, right? So to find that, notice how we can always find the diameter. The diameter is always going to be the line that goes straight through the center, right? In this case, here's my diameter, which means that if that's the diameter, this whole half circle should equal to 180 degrees, correct? And so if all of these three is equal to 180, and I know that one is 72, and this other one is 87, I simply got to do 180, so I'll do 180 minus 72 minus 87, and that's going to give me a measurement of 21 degrees for this particular angle here. And we kind of keep going the same way. And I'm going to use a different color just so we can see it a little bit better. So from SV, that's another diameter, which means that from S all the way to V, we have another 180 degrees. And so if we have another 180 degrees, and I know this is still 87, I simply subtract 180 minus 87 minus 21, and that gives me an angle measurement of 72 degrees. And then here, this last one, once again, we can do the same thing. So notice how, I'll do one more color. Down here, right, we can say that's 180, subtract 72 from it, or 180, subtract 72 from it. I do want to bring your attention to one thing. Notice how here we had two diameters, correct? And so because we had two diameters, we had two lines intersecting, or two segments intersecting, and they're both straight, which create vertical angles. And remember, vertical angles are always congruent, right? So that's one of the important properties that we need to remember, because it is going to be useful later down the road once we start solving these. So to find this measurement, we had 180, and we're going to subtract 72 from it, which gives us a measurement of 108. And now we can go through and answer all the questions because we found all the measurements. So here they're talking about angle measurements. They're telling you angle, right? That's an angle symbol. Here's arc measure, arc measure, arc measure, arc measure. Okay, don't forget about your symbols. So they're telling you angle UXV. So UX, where's X? X is in the center. So UXV is 72 degrees. Measure of arc ST, which found to be 21 degrees. Measure of WV, we found to be 108. Arc measure of TW is, so I want to bring your attention to one thing. So notice how here they have TW, right? Now, I'm going to erase everything else. So TW, we have two ways, right? We can go from here to here, right? Or we could potentially go this way as well, correct? So how do we know what's the difference? Well, the difference is if it's going to be a minor arc, right? So minor arc, then we normally use just the two letters and they're going to represent the shortest distance between them. If I want a major arc, then I'm going to give you another letter that makes me go the opposite way of the minor arc. So this one is going to be a major arc because if you notice, not only are we trying to get from T to W, but we have to go through V. V is over here. So that's what's telling me T, V, W, right? So that's our major arc. So the minor arc from T to W, we simply add 21 and 72, which gives us 93. And to get from T all the way to W for the major arc, we can do, since we know from T to W, and we know that a full circle is 360, we can simply do 360 minus 93, or we can add up these three arc measures or essential angles. Either way, we get 267.